Welcome to the Aegance Offscript Podcast, where we talk to industry leaders who share their stories, insights, and lessons, unfiltered and unscripted. I'm your host, Lawrence, and today I'm super excited to have Zaid Aboobaker, co-founder and CEO of CompassPoint Consulting. Now, Zaid and his team operate across the UK, the GCC, and the UAE, helping ambitious businesses with fractional CFO services, operations clarity, and hands-on implementation. Zaid, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Lawrence. Pleasure to be here.
Great. So, if you wouldn't mind, for the sake of the viewers, just providing a little bit more context beyond how I've just positioned you.
Sure. So, CompassPoint Consulting was born out of a market opportunity that I spotted probably a couple of years ago, where there is regulatory change happening, particularly in the UAE. People were becoming more open to the idea of part-time, interim, fractional, whichever term you prefer, as an option to access senior level talent without having to pay the full-time price. And this is a model that's been very commonly deployed in more developed Western European markets, particularly the UK, where I'm from, where the interim and contractor market is huge. So CompassPoint was born out of I guess a spotting or an identification of that market opportunity. And we launched just me as a sort of a one-man show, as it were, back in July, August of 2024, after leaving corporate life, having spent more than 20 years doing corporate roles. And very fortunately, since then, we've had a pretty rapid growth. We are now approaching double digits in terms of full-time employees. We have got operations that are scattered around different geographic locations, and we are funded and invested in and backed by Hamilton Bradshaw, which is a private equity firm. So we've come quite a long way in a short space of time. I feel very, very fortunate, very lucky to be in that position. And what we're currently doing is helping the smaller size businesses, startups, scale ups, some SMEs, to refine their service offer from a financial perspective. So to think about financial strategy and their outlook going forward. What should they be targeting in terms of geography, in terms of service or product? Are there particular things that we can identify to help unlock their growth? For example, if we spot issues within cash flow, or we spot issues within financial operations or procedures that they're following, how do we advise and help them to make the necessary adjustments to get to that next level of growth or that next level of scale? And it's been a really interesting ride. We meet a huge amount of very interesting founders and business owners on an almost daily basis. I know my eyes have been very much open to wider horizons, and yeah, it's been so far going well. Hard work, but going well.
Amazing. And have you found, I know that it's been, just over a year essentially, but have you
Yeah.
found that the original why has evolved as you've scaled and as you've moved into different regions?
Yeah, I think so. I think when I started off with this, and then when I joined forces with my co-founder Zain, we had this vision in mind of what we would be providing to clients as a service. And if I'm honest with you, what we actually ended up providing and what we provide now on a day-to-day basis doesn't really look anything like what we had in mind, because the types of challenges and problems that we saw businesses having were more organizations that are very developed, like, spending time in big corporate environments. You look at big corporate business problems, and we didn't necessarily appreciate some of the more fundamental issues in financial, operational, or financial strategy, or even things like just budgeting and forecasting that clients would need our support with. And so we've pivoted our model, and we've thought about what are the most common types or the most regularly occurring types of issues that clients face. And we've tried to come to the market with a proposition that packages those as a set of deliverables. So rather than trying to come to you and say, hey, you know what? I'm Zaid, I'm your fractional CFO, I'm going to turn up to your office one day a week and we'll see how it goes. We actually go to clients and say, we're going to provide you with a list. Think of it as a wish list, if you like, of all the different things that we believe could move the needle for your organization. Now, the more of this list you select, obviously the higher the price and the more investment that we have to make from our side from a resourcing and an effort point of view. But it enables you to do something which is to try and do one or two projects first and see how it goes, rather than it being like an open scope of work where I'm going to turn up and it's time based and we'll see how it goes. We provide the client with, well, you'll probably have this particular problem. Let us try and solve that particular issue for you over the next 3 or 4 weeks. And if you like what we do, then maybe you'll think about doing another project or going to a retainer model with us. And that's the sort of flexibility that we've had to pivot to. What we, I think, initially thought would happen is clients would immediately want to sign up for the full-blown service offer or the full-blown retainer model, which they don't, because people still view the fractional model as immature or new in the UAE and wider GCC markets. They want to understand how it works. They want to test and try it. And that's been the biggest pivot I think we've had to make.
And as a founder, so not just as a consultant, what does success look like for you today?
So I think if you'd asked me that question 6 months ago, it would have been a different answer to what it is today. Today, what I'm trying to do from a founder point of view is create a business where if I'm not in the room or if I'm not present, the business can still succeed. The business can still move forward. That requires a lot of effort to be placed in being very deliberate about the way you think about spending your time, the way in which you allocate your resources for operational efficiency internally. And my vision of success as a founder at the moment is trying to eliminate single points of failure in our organization so that we can properly scale and properly be, moving forward and growing to a place where we have really solid operational procedures in place. And this is what we preach to our clients, right? We go and say to our clients that if you want to scale, if you want to grow, you've got to unlock those growth inhibitors. You've got to try and find ways of unlocking things that are preventing you from growing. And a lot of the time, founders like me can get in their own way because they want to do everything and touch everything and be involved in everything. And I think over the last 6 months or so, with a lot of coaching and mentorship from my investors, I've been able to mentally take that step back, or people would argue maybe I've taken a half step back so far, and just tried to think about where I can be most useful to the organization rather than trying to spread myself really thin everywhere. And that's really for me what success is going to look like right now. It's a stable, sustainable business that's poised and ready to take advantage of this market opportunity and grow.
And I think that's often the challenge with a founder is balancing strategic growth and driving that element
Right.
whilst also trying to remain hands-on and close to the clients. At some point, that shift needs to move away. How are you navigating that?
See, in the UAE, where I've lived for the last 17 years, it's very different to other markets from the perspective of how business is done in my experience. Everything here is your network. There's a lot of trust and a lot of um, what I would call reputation management that needs to be done for you to be successful in this market. Word of mouth and referrals are key. And when that happens, the business called CompassPoint is not really what clients are buying. They're buying the reputation of Zaid or of Zain or of whomever it is that we have on the team. And what we're trying to explain to clients is that you're not buying an individual's time, you're not buying an individual's expertise. What you're buying here is CompassPoint's solution. And we are developing or have developed a whole series of solutions that don't depend on one person or on two people. It's a whole team, it's a process and a procedure that we follow to give you the outcome that you want. And when I sit with clients and I explain to them that they might see me a little bit less, or they still have access to me, or they can still call Zain, or they can still call Ahmed, a senior member of our team, or Daniel, another senior member of our team, or they can be in touch with Hannah, who runs our operations, or whatever, they start to see the breadth. And when they get comfortable with the other members of the team, I can then start to sort of take that half step back again, focus a little bit more on the internal ops, go attend a networking event, maybe do a little bit of new biz development. And then if the client gets into a situation where they feel like they need me, they call me. But actually, the biggest part of the success I think we're seeing now is there are a bunch of calls, whether it's Teams or Zoom or Google Meets or whatever they are, that I no longer attend. I don't need to be there anymore. My team is there, my colleagues are there, and unless there's a real problem, I don't need to be involved. They kind of are managing it. And I think it's just a gradual process of building the trust. And if they're part of my team and the client trusted me in the first place, then gradually they are trusting my judgment that the people that I'm allocating to run their accounts are also to be trusted, are also to be considered a safe pair of hands. And we let the work speak for itself. Clients that are happy are the best advocates. Clients who are satisfied with what we are doing are the ones that refer us. And that's how our business grows. It's word of mouth and referrals and getting people to talk about the service they got from us and the fact that they're happy about it.
Mm. So as you transition away from the hands-on client engagement side of the business, what parts of the business do you still want to stay deeply involved in?
So if you ask my team, they'll say everything. But I think from my own perspective, where I really feel that I can add the most value to the organization is in prospecting, in attending events, in trying to be on things like this, right? Where I'm getting some exposure and I'm being able to talk about what I do, what the business does. Because building the brand, the awareness, and trying to develop a tone of voice and getting known in the marketplace for what we do is really where I want to focus my energies. It's trying to create that tone of voice for CompassPoint that if people are, having a conversation and they're like, oh, I've been reading a lot about this whole fractional stuff. I want them to say, well, if it's fractional finance, CompassPoint's the place to go. And to get to that stage and to get to that level of brand recognition requires somebody to be really focused on positioning us and getting our name out there and really pushing that. And if you'd asked me like, 6, 9 months ago, again, it wouldn't have been something I was comfortable doing, but gradually I'm getting used to it. I used to get very worried and nervous about going to meet new prospects or pitching. Now it feels like second nature. And yeah, the nerves are still there, and I still get that kind of those butterflies when you're going out to pitch to client. You say, "Oh, hope I don't mess up, hope I don't say the wrong thing, hope they like me and it goes well." But that's really what I want to focus on, and if I can be that person that represents the brand and the brand value and try to raise awareness about the fractional model, that's going to have the biggest impact in our business going forward.
For sure. And Zaid, you alluded to your partnership with Hamilton Bradshaw at the beginning of this recording.
Yes.
Are you at liberty to give us a little bit of insights in how the partnership came about, how they're assisting you, a little bit more context to that?
Yeah, of course, absolutely. So we were in touch with Hamilton Bradshaw in March of 2025, and initially they asked us to present a short business plan just with how we were thinking about our organization, and bearing in mind at that time it was just myself and Zain. We had no full-time employees, we had a very small client base, but we had some clients and we'd proven that the model was working. And so initially, after presenting that short business plan, we started to get into a more serious discussion with Hamilton Bradshaw, and they are by experience, much more, I'd say, equipped to have assessed the market opportunity than me. Like, what did I really know? I knew a few things and I was able to see the market opportunity. But the fact that a business with 3 decades of experience and seasoned investors who really know what they're doing, they spotted the same market opportunity. And at that point, Hamilton Bradshaw's MENA or Middle East vehicle was looking to try and make investments in early stage businesses in professional services, even pre-revenue, even investing in founders. And when they first came to us, Zain and I, if I'm really honest with you, we didn't take it that seriously. We were like, Like our business is, what's it worth? It's probably worth nothing. So how would anybody want to invest in us? And what we quickly realized is that Hamilton Bradshaw took a much broader view than what we were thinking. They were looking at market dynamics, the opportunity, the shifting landscape. They looked at it from a much broader point of view, and they opened our eyes to other things that we could be doing if we partnered with them and we collectively developed a business plan. And that was the for me, the most attractive thing about working with them was they didn't say, "Hey, you know what? We didn't like what you had to say here. Go away and do it again." They said, "We liked what you had to say, but we think you're missing quite a lot of pieces. And here's how we would think about it, and this is how we would build those pieces in. So can you go away and have a think about this again? And let's come back in a week's time or 10 days' time and revisit your up to date or your revised proposal." And we iterated, and we got to a place where um, the business model was something we were both interested in doing, something we both liked. There was good chemistry. And Hamilton Bradshaw at that stage decided to introduce me to James. And James Khan or is the CEO and obviously lead investor for Hamilton Bradshaw, very experienced, actually has, a history of being on a television show called Dragon's Den in the UK, so is very well known. And if I was nervous about pitching, which I referred to a bit before, this call actually took place on a Saturday. And I remember the night before thinking, oh my God, I hope I don't screw this up. I hope I don't say the wrong thing. It was actually very nerve-wracking. But he was a complete gentleman, as he always is. And he made me feel at ease. And between him and his CEO, Ayman, who's based in Dubai, they took me through the process and they were very straight. Guys, Zaid, this is how it's going to work. These are the terms with which we operate. This is the value we create. Are you in? If you're in, let's go for it. If you're not, let's not waste each other's time. And we thought about it, and Zain and I debated it, and I took a lot of advice from my dad, who is seasoned, experienced entrepreneur and had a lot of experience in running his own businesses. And we came to the conclusion that we would be much better off with them than without them. And that decision's been vindicated because they provide me with almost day-to-day support. So if I'm stuck, have an issue, operational, legal, HR, whatever it is, I can go to them and they will find me a way out. They will find me an option. They will refer me to someone who knows the answer. And they are involved on a day-to-day basis. So I will get calls, regularly from people at Hamilton Bradshaw to check on me. How are you doing? How's it going? Where can we help you? Do you need any support? And having that is helping us to make less mistakes because I don't know what I don't know. And if I keep going at it and having to guess my way through and instinctively make decisions, law of averages is I'm going to get it wrong quite a lot of the time. Whereas if I have people who've got all this experience behind me and I say, what should I do here? And they'll never be categoric about it. It'll never be, you have to do this. It'll be, we would advise you to go down this route, or we would think it's better for you to do it this way. But think about it, and the monthly meetings that we have with them are like, I guess we call them monthly board meetings. They're very advisory in nature. We have a special board advisor appointed to us who helped me along the way. So it's been great.
Well, it certainly sounds like a partnership that was a perhaps a no-brainer and that's yielding some really positive net gains for you guys. So that's super exciting. If
Absolutely.
at Compass Point Consulting, you built a reputation for doing the work, not just advising, do you still see a breakdown between strategy and execution?
Yeah, that's an excellent question, Lawrence. I think that clients get confused. Sometimes clients come to us and they describe problems that need to be solved by accountants or bookkeepers. They describe problems that need to be solved by treasury specialists or supply chain finance specialists or a private equity specialist. And for them, it tends all to kind of merge into one thing. Like it's sort of a group of problems that they have. And so what we have done with a lot of help from Hamilton Bradshaw is we have diversified the way in which we offer the service. So you can think about our service now as kind of stackable, one level on top of another. And at its if you think about kind of the top of that um, level of services, that would be the advisory. And we term that Compass Edge for fractional CFO advisory and Compass Core for fractional COO advisory. Those are really kind of the consulting mandates, the advisory pieces where we are not executing the work, but we are providing the counsel to the client on what we believe would give them the best outcome. And they might be things like, Zaid, I'm thinking about selling a 20% minority interest in my business to ABC. What do you think? And our job there is to think about, is it the right valuation? Is the founder getting, their just desserts for that particular stake that they're giving up? Are they going to get more than just money? Sometimes people come to us for advice around, we've got this quite complex set of processes and procedures now that we're running from a supply chain point of view. Do you have anybody that can help us to make those more efficient or refine them? So that's very much advisory. And then we have our core product, which is called Compass Clarity. And that's really a combination of advisory and execution, but it's definitely more on the execution end. And what that does is it provides businesses with monthly financial reporting. You would not believe the number of businesses who just look backwards. They have bookkeepers who are doing a good job and accountants who are doing a good job and doing a perfectly adequate job. But all they are seeing is, what were my numbers in September? What were my numbers in August? No one is looking at what's going to happen in November. Where am I going to land by year end? What's my Q1 2026 looking like? And so Compass Clarity is a way for us to give businesses a forward-looking view through a whole series of analytics where we get into their accounting system, we ingest the transactional data, we look at things, we make recommendations, we provide reports, and then we sit down with those businesses, whether it's the founders, the owners, the board, and we do a monthly review with them. And that monthly review tends to be 10 minutes talking about the prior performance and 2 hours talking about future in terms of how they can actually go forward and make a difference. So yes, there was definitely a blurred line between execution and strategy or consulting to start with, but we've tried to eliminate that by offering defined package services.
Yeah, fascinating. And internally, how are you ensuring that delivery remains consistent as you grow? I mean, as you take on more complex clients, your geographical footprint expands. How do you maintain consistency?
Yeah, that's been a key focus for us, and it's really in the talent acquisition. So we are really very deliberate about the types of people, the kinds of people that we hire. And I know it sounds very cliche and a lot of people may say it, but we really do hire for the person as opposed to the skill. And for me, at points, it can feel quite labored for a candidate to go through a couple of rounds of interviews with us, but we do it for a reason. We want to make sure that they're a real fit. And we have developed a manual, which I spent many weekends writing and proofing with Zane and others, which is our client service philosophy or our client service ethos. And at the point of final interview, we do actually ask the candidates to take a read of it and ask them if it's something that they can support and get on board with, or would they just get fed up with it and it'd be overkill for them. And there are people who say, like, how do you work like this? We couldn't do it. And we say, fine, this is not the right partnership or this is not the right match. And those people that can get on board with that ethos of client first and striving for excellence and making sure that the output is always as good as you can make it, those are the types of people that have joined us. And so we're trying to be deliberate on the talent side. And then on the output side, we have a process. we don't let things go out unless they've been double checked. Some of my colleagues refer to them as a four-eye check, right? So two eyes have been over it, now two more, and then that's it. It can go. Um, and if you can spend an extra hour and make it 10% better, spend the extra hour. That's sort of our philosophy on the whole thing. What it means is that yes, we end up over servicing, and yes, it means that we probably invest more time in certain things that we should do from a cost and revenue point of view. But I'm okay with that because initially, early days, we're still trying to prove our name and prove the brand. We don't carry the brand of a big four or a big seven or a big consulting firm. That's not us. We're not known that way. What we want to be known as is these guys provide really, really good output and they're very high quality. And if that means that we have to overservice a little bit to get there, I'm okay with that. It's par for the course.
And do you still see any room for refinement in terms of those frameworks, or perhaps some automation could come into?
Definitely. Yeah, 100%. The amount of manual touch points that we have today is not sustainable in the long term. I'm clear on that. And so we are actively investing in stuff that, frankly, I didn't understand very well and I've had to educate myself on. So I talked about the importance of talent acquisition. You will know as well as me, you post an ad for a job on LinkedIn, within an hour, there are 500 applicants. Within 2 days, there are thousands. What do I do with all those CVs? So in the early days, we were actually doing a whole host of manual work. And when I say we, it wasn't really me, it was my team members doing a whole host of manual work, but it was taking ages to get that list of CVs down to some people that we wanted to interview. What we are now investing in is the development of bespoke AI agents that we deploy inside of our database. So we ingest, let's say, 1,000 CVs, and we are training the AI agent to go and look for specific traits, specific experience, specific geographic location, or, for example, visa status is very important sometimes to go and search for on a particular CV if we're looking to try and place someone very quickly. So that is going to be, I think, the future. I think it's going to be the way that we invest. It doesn't take away, in my mind, from the human intelligence that still needs to be applied. It's just accelerating a process that currently takes ages for us to do. And these modifications in our thought process, in our workflows, is going to create more efficiency for us. Because today we spend way too many hours doing things that can be automated.
Absolutely. And I think you touch on such a valid point there that, I mean, I naturally have lots of conversations about artificial intelligence and how it can streamline clients' workflows, etc. And about, I mean, as little as 2 months ago, the concern was that, AI is going to take our jobs. But I'm noticing a very clear shift in attitude towards AI, in that it's now shifting into a space where AI is here to augment us. There's always going to be a human in the loop somewhere. And I think a shift in attitude has been key to seeing the sort of agentic AI space really boom in the last couple of months.
You're absolutely right. It's a totally valid observation. And for me, I always want to try and understand what I'm getting into, because if I and say, hey, you know what, fix this problem for me, how will I know if it's fixed or if it's just patched or if it's sustainable? So I like to get into understanding it a little bit better, and I've tried to educate myself to the best of my ability on these sorts of topics because they didn't come naturally to me. And I think that those of us that embrace it and look at it in a positive light are going to benefit. And those people that duck it or who try to avoid it can only do it for so long. It's inevitable in some way, shape, or form, right? And so rather than ignore it, I think you need to get on board. And to get on board, I think you need to get educated. And there's so much content out there that you can read or watch to help you to really understand the art of the possible, I guess.
Yeah. So, Zaid, if we turn our attention to client acquisition, you're operating across markets like the UK and the GCC, as we've established. What's been the biggest difference in how clients are finding and trusting you across the various regions that you operate in?
So the UAE for us and wider GCC, I could talk about Saudi Arabia as well in that kind of bracket. It's primarily been a lot of referred word of mouth business. But over the last, I'd say 2 months or so, maybe a little bit longer than that, we've become a little bit more active with our marketing. So producing some video content for LinkedIn. That's something I've never done before, but we're now releasing some video content into that space because we feel it performs better than just the narrative. We've also opted to go just a little bit further into sort of paid media as opposed to just looking at it from an organic point of view. And this is in the form of LinkedIn paid ads. And we're starting to see traction developing there. The challenge with the non-referred pieces of business and those that are kind of coming in as inbound leads from the activity that we do is they're not easy to qualify. So when a founder or a business owner or an SME reaches out to us, as is happening more regularly now, thank God, they talk about their challenges and where they feel we could help them. We tend to do an NDA and then a discovery call, but that process is taking quite a long time to get them to a stage where we can figure out, can we help this business or not? And that's something we're spending a lot of time thinking about is how do we move towards getting leads qualified in a faster way so that that discovery call and that NDA process and the back and forth, we can try and avoid that and be respectful of the time of both parties. So that's been one core challenge for us. In terms of differential by market, I think the UK is far less what's the right word? Far less interested or reliant on face to face. The one of the biggest challenges in the UAE, particularly in Dubai where I reside, is moving around from meeting to meeting day to day, sitting in the traffic, burning time, because everybody wants to meet in person. Everyone wants to have a coffee or a catch up or a lunch or a dinner, and that's great, right? It's very social. It's a very nice way to do business, but it also requires a huge investment of time. Whereas the UK market doesn't need that so much. People are quite happy to do things remotely, connect remotely. There's also a level of inherent trust if they see your website and they see a few testimonials that they kind of don't need to meet you face to face and shake your hand and look you in the eye. But the GCC isn't like that. I don't currently have a client on the roster that I haven't met in person at one point or another.
Mm, super interesting. And I hear this sentiment from many of the great operators that I chat to that are based in Dubai. Do you think that is a do you think that's something that will change in the future in terms of how the UAE model operates?
Based on what I see today, no, I don't think it will. I think that the way that business is done here is very high touch. The way that people interact here is different. Um, if you went to a networking or a social event where you didn't know anybody, and I did that when I was back in London, admittedly, I haven't lived there for a long time. The atmosphere would be different to that you experience in Dubai or in Saudi or in Doha. You, in those GCC markets that I've just mentioned, there is an openness and a willingness to kind of connect with people and network and prospect and talk to that you don't necessarily find in, I think, some of the more developed or Western European markets. And because of that habitual nature of how people are used to doing it, I'm not sure it will change. I don't see it changing. Um, and it presents a challenge as well, right? The challenge of all of that is, like I said, the investment of time in doing these many meetings. But you know, you go to those meetings and you meet a person, and they remember you, and they talk to you about another person, and then you get that multiplier effect. And that's really um, I think the benefit of investing the time in being out there and putting in the hours and the face time.
Mm. You referred to referrals being a key driver for you, in particular
Yep.
in the GCC. I'd imagine that many firms rely quite heavily on referrals, but scaling predictably is tough that way. Have you thought about how you could build a more repeatable acquisition engine?
Yeah, and we went through a period where over the summer months where people were not in the UAE, typically what happens is the GCC empties out over the summer holiday period for schools. Everyone goes back to their home countries, and the whole region goes into a sort of hibernation mode. And that period this year really did bring it home to me that when there's no one around, and the market is quiet, and people are not networking, and you're not attending all of those events, how do you really keep business going? How do you keep generating revenue? And we didn't have a solution to that. Probably in this, by my own admission, in the summer, we neglected to have a solution to that problem. And now I believe that the solution to that is, rather than relying on pure referrals or relying on cold outreach, which I don't think is particularly effective, or relying on LinkedIn as your single source of inbound leads, what I think is you need a mix of everything. You need a diversified strategy. And part of that diversification is actually the thought leadership element, which is something I'm trying to work on consistently. So last month, or sort of earlier this month, I had an article published by the British Chamber of Commerce in Dubai. And that really surprised me because I had a lot of people reach out to me after the publication of that article. They have about 30,000 followers on LinkedIn, and I sent it around my network. People wanted to talk to me, not necessarily about new business, but about my thoughts on the evolving landscape in the UAE and the wider GCC of fractional being a solution to a problem. And I was fortunate enough to have been introduced to a lady who runs a marketing and communications agency that helped me out significantly by co-hosting an event where I had 25 strangers in a room talking to them about how I would approach fundraising, taking in investment, thinking about selling their business, thinking about some kind of transaction or monetization event in their business. Now, I didn't charge anything for that. In fact, I invited them and paid for that event. But as a result of it, you end up meeting new people, they refer you to more people. You're not then relying on a referral network that is personal. You're starting to get a wider network of people that you can talk to, that you can rely on to bring you into conversations when there might be an appropriate moment. And so I think having that kind of combination of things is starting to work better for us. Before, yes, I was like, I need to get referred business, and that's the only way I can win. But yeah, we're learning and we're iterating as we go. We refined it? No, of course we haven't. We could still do a lot more, and there's stuff that we want to do, and hopefully we'll get to do, but it's going to be a journey.
Mm.
And what I think will help us is when we have people out there, like clients that are willing to go out and tell the market about the work that we did, whether that's through a case study or through a testimonial, those tend to be the biggest drivers of people coming to us that may not even know us because they see somebody else that they know and trust saying nice things. That leads to them coming to us as well. So it's a number of different approaches we're trying.
Where do you see the biggest opportunity for Compass Point's next phase of growth?
So from my perspective, I go back to our service offerings, which our core offer of Compass Clarity, I think, does really give businesses an opportunity to access financial reporting, insights, future focused, sort of forward looking view with CFO level advisory added as a layer on top of that is a unique market proposition and one that will, when understood properly, play very well for us. And that's really where I see our growth coming from. I see our growth being, think of CompassPoint as more of a subscription or a platform that you sort of bolt into your operational infrastructure. So yes, I have my finance team, I have my bookkeeper, I have my accountant, someone's doing my tax and my statutory filings. Great, that's all good. But who's really helping me to future gaze? Who's helping me to think about what the shape of my business will be down the road and what potential headwinds I'm going to face or what tailwinds I could pick up or where my blind spots are? What are other people doing? What are my competitors doing? And this type of holistic reporting and advisory that we're offering, and we have several clients using it today, I believe is the scalable part of our business and the part that is sort of almost doesn't matter how big or small your company is. You could benefit from that. You know, even if you have a 50-person finance team, I've been part of really big finance teams. You're bogged down in the day to day, right? You're doing your job and you're executing the tasks of the day or the week or the month. You very rarely are able to sit back and really think about properly market assessment and some of the things I've talked about. So that's where we feel is our sort of hero product or service, if you like, and where we feel the benefits of scale will come from. And the other aspect is fractional, as it gains more acceptance, will require people that know the market. So Lawrence comes to me and says, "Hey, you know what? I've decided I need a fractional CFO to help me out. I don't really know where to start. I don't know who's good and bad in the market." We will be able to help you. We'll know that there are 150 CFOs practicing in the UAE. Of that, the majority are Dubai, some are Abu Dhabi. The ones in Dubai who have experience in businesses of a professional services and consulting nature are this, and these are the ones that are available to you. And we call this sort of like, being able to connect you with the right skill or the right service for your particular need. So if you didn't need the Compass Clarity offer, but you just wanted some stuff done on a project basis and how to fix it, you may not know where to start. You may not have the tools at your disposal to go and do that. Whereas we're mapping the market, we're understanding who is operating in the fractional space, and we're building an affiliate network. So I have clients that come to me and say, "Hey, Zaid, do you know a good lawyer? Do you know someone who could be good for me in HR? I'm thinking about bringing in someone to do talent acquisition. Could you recommend someone?" But they're all thinking about it now from a fractional standpoint because they've accepted that that's the solution. And if we're in a position to say, "Hey, yes, I know this person, I know that person, and we'll charge you an introductory fee for pushing that person into your ecosystem or placing them or what have you," then that's the strength of what we're building in the UAE, in the GCC, as first mover advantage, as knowing how the market operates.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it sounds like a very exciting opportunity that you have before you. Zaid, for our listeners and viewers who want to reach out, make connection, get a hold of you
Yeah.
and the team, where's the best place for them to do that?
Well, we're on LinkedIn, so we have a Compass Point page, a Compass Point consulting page on LinkedIn. I'm very active in that space. We also have a website through which you can fill out the contact us form, and we'll get right back to you. So yeah, by all means, reach out. Happy to talk, happy to help, and we look forward to it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the Aegance Offscript podcast. It's been a fascinating conversation talking about Compass Point from its early days and its inception to how far you've come in a couple of months beyond a year. So really excited for what the future holds for you and appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me, Lawrence. I really appreciate it, and be in touch soon.
That's it for today's episode of the Aegance Offscript Podcast. If this conversation sparked something within you, a thought, a question, or a new way of seeing your own business, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below. We'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.